question for you. Do you remember when you were in elementary school or middle school and the friends that you had? Do you remember some of those friends?
Yeah.
Did you ever have a friend during that period of your life that you really weren't supposed to be friends with? Right? That maybe the other kids said, why are you friends with them? Or maybe your parents said, why are you friends with them? Anybody remember that? Have a friend like that? So when I was in 7th grade, I became friends with a girl I wasn't supposed to be friends with. In the hierarchy that is middle school, she and I moved in social circles that did not mix. We came from different backgrounds and had very little in common, which I think is why we were attracted to each other. My parents encouraged me not to spend so much time with her, to make other, more appropriate friends. But the more my parents pressured me, the more I was determined to maintain that friendship. No one was going to tell me who I could be friends with. When I think about that friendship now, I realize I was crossing a social boundary I wasn't supposed to. It made the people around me, my teachers and classmates, my parents and grandparents, uncomfortable. And the irony is, I wasn't trying to make anyone feel uncomfortable. I just wanted to be friends with someone who was different than me. So the story we hear today, today's gospel story, reminds me of that middle school friendship in some ways. The story centers on an interaction between two people from different backgrounds, the Samaritan woman and Jesus. They live within a really strict social hierarchy, which is meant to keep them apart. And yet here they are at a well at noon, engaging in a deep conversation. Now the Samaritan woman is rather shocked when Jesus speaks to her. It's something that ignores the social hierarchy and crosses boundaries between being Samaritan and Jewish, also boundaries between men and women. And when Jesus breaks this social convention to ask her for a drink of water, the Samaritan woman has a choice. She can choose to respond to him, or she can choose to ignore him. What she chooses is to respond. And the way she responds is a way that I admire. She's not timid, she's bold. She has opinions about the differences between Samaritans and Jews. And she's not afraid to ask questions, even to Jesus. The truth is, we don't know a lot about this woman, which is true of many women we encounter in the Bible. But there are some things we can imagine about her. She's probably not a young woman. In fact, it's possible that she's older than Jesus. She's knowledgeable about the history of the divide between the Samaritans and the Jews, two groups that don't get along at all, which means she's confident in debating with Jesus about those differences. She's well-spoken and able to engage with Jesus in a serious theological discussion. And it's a dialogue between the two of them, not a monologue where Jesus is doing all of the talking. She's able also to evolve in her understanding of who Jesus is as she talks to him, seeing him first as a Jew who is different from her, then as a prophet, and finally realizing that he may be the Messiah. While many biblical commentaries cast the Samaritan woman in a negative light, the story itself describes a woman who is intellectually astute and curious. She's confident enough to both challenge Jesus and learn from him. That's a skill many people lack. She's also well respected within her own community. And we know this because when she goes to the city to tell others about Jesus, they believe her. They trust what she says to be true. And at her urging, they follow her to meet Jesus. As the gospel says, they all believed in Jesus because of what she had told them. This woman, who should have been an enemy of Jesus, becomes his messenger. And that transformation happens partly because Jesus breaks the rules. He breaks the rules of social convention to speak to someone outside of his circle. And in doing so, he ends up making that circle larger. This is a typical pattern in Jesus' ministry. Jesus talks to people he's not supposed to talk to, eats with people of dubious moral character, and heals people who are shunned by others. Jesus ignores the boundaries set by hierarchical systems repeatedly in public spaces where everyone can see what he's doing. So while his choice to have a personal conversation at a public well with a woman from an opposing religious group may seem unusual, it's a choice he probably isn't uncomfortable with, which may drive his male disciples a little bit crazy because they are very uncomfortable with what Jesus is doing. How can Jesus talk on and on with a woman, and a Samaritan at that, and out in the open where everyone can see them? The disciples don't understand why Jesus would act out like this. They would never approach a woman, especially if she's alone without a male chaperone, let alone talk to her. Doesn't Jesus know that what he's doing will hurt his image? Isn't he concerned about maintaining the integrity of his message? Why would he do something so foolish? The irony here is that whether the disciples are trying to protect Jesus or are uneasy with him taking a woman so seriously, it doesn't really matter to Jesus. Because as we know, this isn't the first time, nor the last, that Jesus will take the opportunity to engage with someone without thinking about how it will affect his reputation. His life and ministry are dedicated to sharing the living water. And that offer comes without limitations or boundaries about who it's offered to. The living water of God's love is a gift which is offered freely, even to a woman from a group of people that his people are historically at odds with. It's the odd offer and the way Jesus treats the Samaritan woman which draws her into conversation, a conversation that changes her life. When she talks with Jesus, she feels seen by this person, really seen, perhaps for the first time, seen for who she is, just her. Not her gender, not her race, not her religion, not her station in life, not what she has or hasn't done. just seen deeply for exactly who she is and accepted exactly for who she is. And that changes everything for her. It quenches a thirst she doesn't even know she has. She wants the living water Jesus was talking about, even if she doesn't quite understand what it is or where it will take her. Such is the power of an encounter which crosses constraining boundaries. When Jesus decides to talk to this woman, a barrier is broken and the circle of inclusion widens. It's a moment in time which challenges hierarchy, redefines who belongs, and embraces what matters most, valuing people and offering life-giving hope. This is the work that God calls us to do as well, to break down barriers and cross boundaries, to do what we can to widen the circle of inclusion by honoring the personhood of other people. We do this work one step at a time, exactly where we are with the people around us. And we never, ever do it alone. We do this work in the name of a love so great that it defeats death. This love, which is beyond logic, feeling, and understanding, is centered on the one who gives us hope and helps us hold on to hope. It is Jesus the Christ who lives and dies and is with us even now. Jesus offers us living water today and every day for the purpose of fulfilling God's deep desire for the circle of inclusion to widen, our love for one another deepen, and our broken world to be healed. My hope for us today is that we are as bold and curious and receptive to transformation as the Samaritan woman is. And that, like Jesus, we live our lives in the way of love and hope, remembering to cross boundaries, eliminate barriers, and create space where no one